Hey Kobey. So as promised, here's a hopefully quick video on some thoughts about editing for expression. So the series you posted was good, very good in terms of the shooting, and the comments I was making were, well, how could we then take it to the next level in terms of editing? So in this picture, I like it a lot. It's simple, it's clean. We have a distribution of water coming in, breaking over this rock, and it's sort of bounded by these rocks. So the first question I'll ask is color important to the shot? And if so, how is the color? Is it color balanced nicely? Is it saturated enough? But in this case, I would argue that maybe color is not that important to the shot, and that the color I'm seeing here has actually got a greenish tinge to it. It's not awfully attractive. So I'm in Photoshop here, and what I'm going to do next is say, well, let's try black and white. So I'm going to say image at the top and then mode, and just do a straight conversion to grayscale and discard the color information. So right off the bat, it's kind of boring. You know, the water is here, but it's not very contrasty compared to the background. It doesn't stand out. But the difference between what this looks like and just a little bit of editing can be dramatic. So let's start by saying, where is the focal point? And it happens to be this water that's breaking down. And what takes your eye away from the focal point, or at least doesn't really help support it? And I'd say this whole top corner, all of this up here, that if that were a little darker, then this would pop a little more. The rocks are already somewhat dark. I may raise the contrast of them a little bit too by the time I'm done. So how do we make this a little darker selectively? And to do that, I use the lasso tool, and I'll come in with the lasso and I'll just draw a line right through that area. Now, if I just darken this without feathering it out, it's going to create a cutout look that's really bad. So we need to feather this or soften this edge. So you click Select and Mask here, and see that would be the edge right there. And over on the right, feather, I'm going to dial this up till it starts to blend in nicely, something like that. You know, you can see that blend line there. And I'll say OK to that. And I'm going to hide this selection so I can see what I'm doing even better by hitting Control H on the keyboard. And when I darken areas, I don't tend to use levels. I use levels to increase contrast and light, and I use image, adjustment, brightness, contrast to darken areas. Okay, so I'm dialing back brightness just a little bit like that. And see what happens here is suddenly the water pops a little more. Here's the before and here's the after. It's a subtle change, but it's an important change. So now I'm going to deselect everything, and let me take a look at levels now. Control L, or the menu is image, adjustment, levels. Control L is the shortcut, and pull that in. And what I'm seeing now is a histogram of all the values. That's the range from pure black on the left to pure white on the right. So I'm going to make sure that I'm setting my black point right to the edge of the mountain, which is good. So you can see some of those black points there. And then I'm going to pull in my highlights just to the edge of the mountain like that, and say OK. Actually, before I do that, let me experiment with the midtones here. If I dial the mid to the right a little bit, it's going to raise that apparent contrast even a little bit more, just like that. So here's the before, Control Z. You see how it's a little gray, and the after. It's contrastier and it pops more. But I don't have any blowouts, no bright areas that are uncontrolled. And maybe one last little tweak could be a vignette. So what I'm going to do with that is take this elliptical marquee tool. There's also a square marquee tool hiding in there. Take the elliptical, put it to the center, hold down the Alt key, click and drag, and that pulls an oval out from the center point here. And then I'm going to feather it again. Okay, a lot, just like that. Click OK. Inverse the selection. So we go Select, Inverse. There's also a shortcut here, Shift-Control-I. And then hiding it, I could say View, and Extras, Control-H here, and that disappears it, or just Control-H toggles it on and off the selection. So I'm going to leave it off. And since I'm darkening again, I'm going to go Image, Adjustment, Brightness, Contrast, and quiet down the outer edges just a little bit more. Okay. All right, now we've got something going here. We've got the rocks, we've got the water, but we've got dynamism here with this breaking wave. Let me show you with history. Let's see. Go into Windows, History this way. Okay. And when I pasted your image in, it looked like this. Green and somewhat dull. And we converted it to grayscale. Good first step, but somewhat dull. Okay, and then we just built in a little bit of drama from that point on. I used the lasso and created a selection. I darkened it, deselected it. I used levels to increase the contrast. Finally, I used an elliptical marquee and inverted it and then darkened it a little bit. Okay, so from this to that. And then I save it as a JPEG and post it to the blog. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. See you on the blog.